Welcome back to another episode of Wild Satsang with Chris Taylor. In this episode, I'm going to read from Ramana Maharshi's 40 Verses on Reality. The version I chose is originally written by, or annotated by, Richard Clark. I chose this version because I think it's one of the more direct versions of this short little 40-verse memo on Sri Ramana Maharshi's original 40 Verses on Reality teachings. I hope you enjoy. Verse 1. You are all. From our perception of the world, there follows acceptance of a unique first principle possessing various powers. Pictures of name and form, the person who sees, the screen on which he sees, and the light by which he sees. He himself is all of these. Author's comment. Since we exist and perceive an external world, there must be a cause, a higher power, something greater than our individual self, one reality which underlies the appearance of both the seer and what is seen. Existence consciousness. Perceptions play out on the screen of consciousness, as does everything with a name or form. This includes the seeming person that sees the screen itself, and the light by which the screen is lit. All of this, the seer, the screen, and what is seen, is yourself, your deepest identity, not the imagined identity that you hold to as real and who you are. It's like we are at the movies, only to discover we are the screen, not the movie. Is the screen ever burned by the fire in the movie? The self is the first principle written about in this first sentence. Practice note. Right now, do you exist? You do exist, and you know you exist. Without using mind or senses, you know you exist. If you are looking within for who you are, how can any of these changing things be you? You feel like you, the same one, all the time. What is it that is present all the time within you? When you look through your senses, you see myriads of objects and complexities. When you look directly into yourself, what you find is most singular. Do you have two existences or just one? Are there two selves within one to see the other, or just one? Verse 2. Not three, but only one. All religions postulate the three fundamentals, the world, the soul, and God. But it is only the one reality that manifests itself as these three. One can say, the three are really three, only so long as the ego lasts. Therefore, to inhere in one's own being, where the I, or ego, is dead, is the perfect state. Author's comment. First, we imagine that we are a separate self when we see a world populated by others. Thinking how this all happens, we imagine a God. We usually do not notice all three of these sprang from ourselves. When through self-inquiry we discover this, there is only peace. The peace that comes from there being no other to fear, and no thing we do not have, so there is no desire, nothing to want. Desires come from the ego. There is nothing separate for the self to desire. Peace is freedom from desire. So to gain real peace, you must kill the ego. When you know who you are, your identity as the self, you also see the ego being unreal, had no existence to begin with. This is how the ego is said to die. How can something that never existed have any hold on you? Practice note. Notice that you exist. Investigate just what this means, just who or what exists, and where. Discard all that comes and goes, and dive into what remains. Do you sense three, here, or only one? Existence is singular. So are you. You just need to discover for yourself that no individual exists now, nor did it ever. Verse 3. Take a non-objective outlook. The world is real? No, it's a mere illusory experience. The world is conscious? No, the world is happiness. No. What use is it to argue this? That state is agreeable to all, wherein, having given up the objective outlook, one knows oneself and loses all notions either of unity or duality of oneself and the ego. Author's comment. Dualities are just mental constructs. To debate the reality of the world is like arguing over the scales of a snake that is finally found to be just a rope. The entire point of spiritual practice is to find out just who or what you are. This, called above, having given up the objective outlook, brings peace and happiness to everyone. That is why Ramana said, the state is agreeable to all. Practice note. When your mind gets quiet, you feel calm and at peace. Where does this peace come from? When your mind is quiet, you are no longer conjuring up the thoughts, memories, ideas, and projections that you usually seem to live in. What is different in these mental states? And if it is not conjured up, where does this peace come from? And why is this felt by everyone? Could it be that everyone is looking within to what is already there for everyone? What is to be found by such investigation? Who am I? Verse 4. The seeing self is the eye of the eye. If one has form oneself, the world and God also will appear to have form. But if one is formless, who is it that sees those forms, and how? Without the eye, can any object be seen? The seeing self is the eye, and the eye is the eye of infinity. Author's comment. How you see yourself determines how you see everything else. If you have a form, then so do others, the world, and God. If you, though, are formless, so are the world and God. Practice note. Inquire into yourself. Who knows? Use this inquiry to dive into your consciousness. If you think it is the mind that knows, then ask, who knows this mind? And, does this knower have a form? Verse 5. Do you see a world without a body? The body is a form composed of the five-fold sheath. Therefore, the 5 sheaths are implied in the term body. Apart from the body, does the world exist? Has anyone seen the world without a body? Author's comment. The 5 sheaths are from the outer to inner. 1. Physical, the body and senses. 2. Energy, the life force that moves within the body. 3. Mental, the mind and thought. 4. Wisdom, the intellect. And 5. Bliss, the subtle body, experiences happiness, delight, and bliss. Your own being, yourself, is within, the innermost, deeper than all 5 sheaths. Practice note. How do you know the world? It is only through the senses. How do you know the senses? It is only through the mind. How do you know the mind? You can see your thoughts, which means that the thought is external to you. What within you knows your thoughts? What within you knows? Verse 6. The world and the mind exist together. The world is nothing more than an embodiment of the objects perceived by the 5 sense organs. Since, through these 5 sense organs, a single mind perceives the world is nothing but the mind. Apart from the mind, can there be a world? Author's comment. Your idea of a world and a mental model of that world is based only on your sense perceptions of it. For you, the world is really only a mental model. Your senses also are filtered through this mental model. When the mind is not active, like in deep sleep, do you even know of any world? So the world arises and falls based only on your mind. Practice note. When you are dreaming, where does the world in the dream come from? This world has the same sense of reality as the world in the waking state. What do these 2 worlds have in common? It is only the mind that knows them. Who knows the mind? Verse 7. That which does not arise or set is reality. Although the world and knowledge thereof rise and set together, it is by knowledge alone that the world is made apparent. That perfection wherein the world and knowledge thereof rise and set, and which shines without rising and setting, is alone the reality. Author's comment. All things come and go. Something knows all these transitory things. If you look within right now, there is something that is the same as your oldest memory. Let me repeat that. If you look within right now, there is something that is the same as in your oldest memory. What is this? The sense of reality in each moment and in the last night's dream. Trace out, where does this sense of reality come from? Practice note. If you inquire and first ask yourself, do I exist? The same answer will come no matter how many times you ask. You must exist. Otherwise you would not ask that question. What is this existence? Does it ever change? Is it something more and sometimes less? The sun rises and sets. Do you? Verse 8. Realization is knowing identity with reality. Under whatever name and form, one may worship the absolute reality. It is only a means for realizing it is without name and form. That alone is true realization, wherein one knows oneself in relation to that reality, attains peace, and realizes one's identity with it. Author's comment. Only the self can know the self. The mind can never know. The mind is in the self, not the other way around. When you turn your own light of consciousness upon itself, you find this light that is lit up by itself. Nothing else is needed. What is this self-effulgent light? Is it any different from you? Practice note. When you look outside your body and inside, all you perceive is objective to you. It is an object of perception. You are the subject. When you look within at more subtle experiences, like feelings, moods, and thoughts, these are still objective, known to you. Who is the knower of all these? The knower never appears as the known. How could it? Who is this unknown knower of all that is known? Does this need any other light than itself to be known? Verse 9. Dualities and trinities are only the one reality. The duality of subject and object and trinity of seer, sight, and seen can exist only if supported by the one. If one turns inward in search of that one reality, they fall away. Those who see this are those who see wisdom. They are never in doubt. Author's note. The self is the substratum on which dualities and trinities exist. They seem to obscure, to cover the self like clouds over the sun. When the clouds part, the sun shines unabated. So it is with the self. Remove the obscurations of the self. Remove the obscurations, and the self shines by itself. When this is known directly, doubts and misconceptions can stand no longer. Practice note. When you look deep within, how many do you find? How many existences do you have? There are two of you, one to know and the other to be known. These are examples of the common experience that are at our heart. We are just one. True knowledge only knows the self. Ordinary knowledge is always accompanied by ignorance, and ignorance by knowledge. The only true knowledge is that by which one knows self through inquiring who is the knowledge and ignorance. Verse 10. True knowledge only knows the self. Ordinary knowledge is always accompanied by ignorance, and ignorance by knowledge. The only true knowledge is that by which one knows the self through inquiring whose is the knowledge and ignorance. Author's comment. Only the self can know the self. What is not the self is not real. It comes and goes like dust in the winds. How can what is not real ever know anything? What is called in this verse ordinary knowledge is mental, conceptual, a model of reality, a model made of desires, aversions, attachments, and fears. The self is directed knowledge. How do you know the self? Why? Through self-inquiry, using forms of the inquiry such as, who knows this? And for whom is this? Practice note. Consider the story of the snake seen in a dark room. When turning the light on, it is seen only as a rope. What is the benefit in wondering about the snake's history and the color of its scales? What is unreal and has no existence. Ignorance is unreal. When you inquire, who knows? What do you see? Is it the mind? Who knows the mind? When you look to know your existence, who knows that you exist? When you inquire, for whom is this? Is it for the mind? Or something deeper that knows the mind? This knowledge, deeper than the mind, does not depend on the mind. This is true knowledge. If you enjoyed this recording and would like to support this work getting out to a wider audience, please consider joining our Patreon, where different tiers allow you to submit personal questions, which will be addressed on one of the upcoming Q&A sessions, one-on-one chats, or even join one of our camping excursions. Currently, we host the camping excursions of Wild Satsang in Joshua Tree National Park in California. Go check out wildsatsang.org for more. Thank you for listening. Love you.